Hardware Unboxed. It is that time of the month, Q&A time. So we've got the February Q&A, which hopefully we get out in the right month. I think we've been doing a pretty good job with that.
Yep.
But yeah, we've asked you guys to ask us questions. We've done that on the YouTube community page and of course for Discord members. So Floatplane and Patreon. So those guys have asked questions there. So there'll be a mix of both the Discord community and the YouTube page. Anyway, we should probably get into it, but before we do, today's video sponsor is Thermal Grizzly and their Cryonaut Extreme, which is now available in a 2-gram syringe. This high-performance thermal paste delivers maximum thermal conductivity thanks to an extremely small particle size and layer thickness. It's also very flexible, capable of standing up to sub-zero temperatures for extreme overclocking, but also performs exceptionally well for air and water cooling applications. So if your CPU or GPU needs repasting, then I suggest checking out the Thermal Grizzly range. Link is in the video description.
It's been almost a year since ResizableBAR was introduced for Nvidia GPUs, but no game since then has been officially optimized to support rebar. On the other hand, a recent AMD driver provided further optimizations for SAM on many games. Do you see this becoming a problem for Nvidia GPUs given that SAM support on AMD cards are improving, but we haven't heard anything from Nvidia regarding rebar since March of 2021? Very much a you question.
Yeah, well, I'll do my best to answer it. There's a bit of blanks here and there, which we haven't done the appropriate level of testing. So as far as official game support goes, are we expecting like official game support, like a game that's designed to take advantage of ResizableBAR? I wouldn't have thought so.
I don't think on the game developer side, right? Like it's more of a Nvidia whitelist type thing. Yeah,
there've been games where ResizableBAR makes a big difference, like Forza Horizon 5, for example. I haven't tested that game in depth, but I know with Radeon GPUs, it's sort of like your Assassin's Creed Valhalla type performance uplift.
Yeah.
How much of a problem it's going to be for Nvidia, it's really hard for me to give you guys an accurate answer on that one because, as I said, at some point I would like to do a very in-depth updated ResizableBAR benchmark video because not everyone has like a Ryzen 5000 CPU.
Yep.
So while we've seen good gains with those CPUs, I'm not sure how strong and consistent the gains are with, say, Alder Lake CPUs. So that's something worth investigating. And I don't expect a lot of games to still be like, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Forza Horizon 5 type gains. And I'm not sure if there's still games where it goes backwards or if that's been addressed. So yeah, my testing there is outdated. I know I've been talking about updating testing. I want to do that. Had a lot of other content we've got to do like B660 testing and stuff like that. But it'll be a problem for Nvidia if, 20% gains become the norm, I suppose, which I'm not really expecting them to. I think it'll be like some games you get gains, some games you get small gains, and then a lot of games you don't get any gain. But yeah, I really need to do the updated testing to find that out. So I can't really promise when that'll happen, but hopefully in a few weeks I can get to it because we do have a lot of things planned at the moment. But yeah, sorry I couldn't give a real concrete answer on that one. That's the best I can sort of do at the moment, but we didn't skip this question because it was heavily upvoted. You guys wanted an answer on it, but unfortunately that's the best I can do. How would you react if someone told you guys in 2017 that AMD will release a new GPU in 5 years that performs like an RX 580 with less features and a higher price tag? I'd probably tell you you're out of your mind, you're mad.
Yeah, I'd be saying, no, that's not going to happen. No.
Having said that, it was funny catching up with Matt for the live stream build because last time we built Matt a computer, we built him I think it was a Ryzen 7 1700 system, pretty high-end rig for the time, especially for a desktop PC, but we were contemplating putting an RX 560 in there because there was a current cryptocurrency boom, and we had planned for a GTX, I think it was a 1070 Ti Pascal GPU, but they were insanely expensive. So I was sort of messing with Matt saying, well, I do have this new GPU, but maybe we'll give you this budget banger because GPU pricing is just so crazy right now. And that was pretty much exactly 4 years ago that happened. So we've seen those crazy crypto booms in the past. But yeah, 5 years ago, having said that, it'd be pretty hard to believe.
Yeah, even if you told me that the RX 580 would still be a good option today, or even that low-end card performance is about the level of a 580 in 2022. If you told me that 5 years ago, I'd be like, no,
Yeah,
no
chance.
no chance.
No
but
chance.
Instead, no, we've just seen a plateau at that level, unfortunately. So
Yeah, no, you would not have believed that for a second.
yeah.
All right, Tim. After the lack of MSRPs on both the 3080 12GB and 2060 12GB, and no card seemingly available to hit and stay at their MSRP, and what do you think will be the effect of companies dropping MSRPs entirely on graphics cards, for instance? Maybe they're just doing it for 12GB models.
Maybe.
We're seeing a trend here, are we not? I mean, it's pretty obvious why Nvidia's gone about things the way they have for those two particular products. I mean, I don't know, for lack of a better term, exposed the game plan there in our almost day one reviews because they withheld drivers for the 3080 model. This whole MSRP is going away type discussion, and everyone seems really heavily invested in it. And you and I think we're both just like, don't really see this as being too much of an issue. And at the moment, the market's a mess. We've been saying don't buy graphics cards now for a year. Wait for it to, competition to return and things to settle down. We know why it's a mess, and we don't expect that to continue forever. We don't also expect it to go back to the way it was, but it'll certainly improve. And as things improve and graphics cards are sitting on shelves, which they're doing now, we've spoken to retailers and they're like, we're telling AMD and Nvidia things have to improve on pricing because we have a lot of cards sitting around not moving. So that's sort of started happening over the last few weeks. So they're going to have to get serious with pricing if they want to start shipping cards in good volumes again.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that no MSRP doesn't mean no price.
Yeah.
Because when you go to a retailer, you're seeing a price.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we're going to be sitting here going, well, we have no idea what this card costs. And when producing reviews in the future, it's not just going to be, well, we've got card X and Y and there's no pricing for these, so not much we can do there. No, we can find out the price by looking at the retail shelves and what they're actually charging for their cards. Yeah, it's going to be not as ideal for reviews before the release because there's going to be, it's going to be hard to know. But
Yeah, exactly. But as you say, the market has still determined the pricing of these cards, which is why we've seen 5700 XTs worth more or the same as 6700 XTs, despite them being a slower product for gaming. They're better for mining. Therefore, the market has dictated the pricing there. And the 3080 12GB, was the pricing of that particularly surprising?
No, not really. I think we had a pretty good guess of where it would be.
It's slotted in between a 3080 and a 3080 Ti, right?
Yeah.
So all it means is we know, well, we should know how much money Nvidia is getting per 3080 Ti sale. And we know they're getting a lot less money for an original 10GB 3080. The 12GB 3080, we don't know what they're selling them for, and that pricing could be dynamic on Nvidia's end. They're just like, we'll just charge what the market will bear. We're going to crunch our partners and retailers and distributors on what they can actually get away with that product, and we're going to maximize our margins on it. That's what they've done.
Yep, pretty much.
That's why that product exists. We knew what they were doing and why, but they couldn't say, we're going to make it, we're going to reduce volume. Like, people were like, well, what if they sort of discontinue the 3080 Ti and the 3080 and make this a $3,000 card? I was like, well, that's not what the market is telling them they can do. They can't just go, oh, we're going to delete MSRPs because we want to charge $4,000 a card now.
Yeah, it's like if people aren't willing to pay that price, they're not willing
It'll
to
just
pay
sit
that
on
price.
shelves until they get down to a price that people... So, I mean, that's how this stuff works, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal to not have the MSRP. We
Yeah.
would prefer to have the
Sure.
MSRP, but it's not going to
But if you-
destroy reviewers. It's
No.
not going to destroy the pricing for you guys. The
Also-
price is the price.
Also, if they're like, we've released the 3080, the MSRP is $700, go get one tomorrow for $2,500. How useful is the MSRP then? If anything, I feel that MSRP was more damaging for day one reviews.
Yeah, because the MSRP is wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's a lie.
So we all review, and at the time it was different, but we reviewed those cards based on the MSRP, and it turns out that it was 80% more than that, 90% more, 100% more. So I feel the MSRP being way more misleading in that direction is more damaging for reviews and consumers.
exactly.
So I don't see it as being a big issue, and we know And even for new generation cards, we don't need to know when they release the 4000 series, we don't need the MSRP to review that accurately. We can be like, okay, so let's say it's 40% faster than the 3080. We know what the 3080 costs. Do you want to pay 40% more so you're not getting any extra value there, or do you want that performance at the price we're currently paying for a 3080?
Yeah.
So you can work all that stuff out, and we've done like 3 to 6 different pricing analysis in the day one stuff. So
I think people get cut up because they want the review to either say this is good or bad based on the performance and the pricing. But there's other ways to review, and that's a way that you've used for some of the latest things like the 3050, for example, where you show different prices saying, this is the price it needs to hit. If it's higher, it's bad. If it's lower, it's good. And it becomes very simple in that.
Yeah, people say,
area.
you guys let Nvidia off. I said in plain English very clearly, if the RTX 3050 is at or near $500, and certainly above $500, then it is a big fat nothing burger. Completely ignore it. It's not worth buying. Just get yourself an RX 6600. I can't be any more clear with the messaging there. And what did it hit, like 600 US?
Briefly, I think they're down under 500 now.
Okay.
But
yeah, well, whatever the case is, we gave different price ranges, and again, I think that's even a better, more conclusive way of going about it, which is why I find this whole thing a bit silly, because we're covering all regions then.
Yeah, and even when there's an MSRP, the AIBs have all sorts of different models.
Yeah.
So, yes, there's going to be the entry-level cards around that price, but even for some products, the entry-level cards may be starting $20, $30 more, and then you might be having your premium models that are $60, $70, $80 more in a normal market. And so then having that number where it makes sense is very useful. And yeah, I agree. It can be more useful than just saying, well, the MSRP card is the price. Because I wouldn't know the numbers on this, but how many people in a normal market are actually buying the cards at the exact MSRP? Or are they paying 10% more, 15% more? So yeah, like I think we've covered pretty comprehensively, not having an MSRP isn't that big of a deal.
We will criticize them for being misleading with the MSRP for sure, as we've continued to do. We would much rather that we get that information accurately, but we also don't think it's the end of reviewing because we don't have an accurate MSRP, because we know what they sell for.
Like what about Z690 motherboards? Is there an MSRP for Z690? No, there's an MSRP for each board.
Also, I can reach out to half a dozen retailers prior to they all talk to me. They're all more than happy to give me the information. Like, so what is it actually selling for? What does stock? And I get all the information. I include that in the reviews every time. So it's not like we go into this going, oh, gee, it could be $4,000 or it could be $1,000. We ultimately have no idea.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll move on to the next question because we could ramble forever on that one.
Yeah.
All right, Tim, I've got a monitor-related thing here that apparently came up in our live stream. I feel like I can answer this one based on my crude understanding of the technology, but maybe there's something to be added. Based on a chat I read in a live stream, does screen size affect latency, or is it solely dependent on monitor technology? The expert in the chat claimed that 32-inch monitors would have more latency than their 27-inch counterparts, and that he has a buddy with a 92-inch screen on which games are unplayable due to latency. Surely he's confusing like monitor panel technology there, like refresh rates and input and all that sort of stuff.
I think the issue with the 92-inch screen is that it's a TV, not a monitor. And TVs are notorious for having like lots of processing. They try and do all sorts of things, unless you have like a specific game mode.
To be unplayable though, it must be horrifically bad.
So it's probably 60 hertz plus like terrible input latency, which... you can't really compare TV and monitor for input latency because they're very different in what they achieve.
Well, that's kind of a third weird part of the question. But basically, I think essentially his claim is if they had roughly the same monitor technology, but one was 27 and one was 32, so they were both 4K 144 hertz with very similar specs, he's saying the 27-inch would lower your input latency.
No, that's not how it works.
No,
the main reason for input latency is either refresh rate. So if you've got two displays that have the same refresh rate, they're going to have the same lag associated with the refresh rate. And the second thing would be just the processing delay. So that comes from how fast can the scaler take inputs from your PC and turn them into signals that the display controller can then produce. So if you've got the same scaler and the same refresh rate, you're almost certainly going to have the same input latency. So the screen size doesn't make a big difference there. The panel readout's going to be pretty much the same from top to bottom. So that's not going to be a significant impact. And yeah, so larger screens generally don't have higher latency on the monitor side. But obviously if you're moving into TVs like the 92-inch option, then you're not really talking apples to apples anymore. You're talking about a completely different product category. So that's where that would come into play.
Well, we'll stamp that one as myth busted.
Nice.
If AMD lied about the RX 6500 XT MSRP as much as Nvidia lied about the RTX 3050 MSRP, probably fair, would it have been more acceptable from your perspective? Given we now know that the 6500 XT retails for around $270, so 30% premium, and the 3050 goes for closer to or even markedly over $500, so like 100% markup there. And if so, aren't you just punishing AMD for being more honest about pricing? There's definitely some truths in there, but again, it comes back to how we go about reviewing it, and we don't really believe any MSRPs at the moment. So in the case of the 6500 XT, if I recall correctly, we said at $200, that's really the only price point where we can start to justify the existence of this product. I think we even gave maybe a 270 example. It was around 270, 300. Yeah. We're like there. Honestly, for those of you in the know that have access to a secondhand market, definitely buy like a secondhand GTX 1650 Super, 5500 XT, or maybe even go even lower and get like a placeholder like an RX 570. So they were the recommendations there. So we sort of covered all those various scenarios. And then we did the same thing with the RTX 3050. We basically said at the $250 MSRP, cracking good buy, definitely get that GPU. Also, definitely not going to be available at that price. Like, we didn't sugarcoat that. We said there's no way this will be a $250 product. We said we expect it to be $370. We said at $370, it's okay. It'll be potentially worth buying there because the RX 6600s were regularly available at around $450 to $500. So it kind of makes sense there. If it gets up towards $500, big fat nothing burger, ignore it.
Yeah, I think with this, it depends on how a reviewer is reviewing. And for us, it makes we place very little weight on the MSRP because we know it's not going to be true. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're a reviewer where the entirety of your analysis is based on the MSRP and the pricing of every card at its MSRP, then you kind of are punishing AMD for being slightly more accurate with the MSRP. Mm-hmm. Now, I think in this particular instance, I don't think lying is quite the right word. It's a very strong word to use, but being misleading with the MSRP, even though AMD is more accurate, both MSRPs were wrong.
Yeah, I see where the question's coming from. Like, say it was 150.
Yeah, right? That's basically what they're asking. If it was 150 selling for 300 or 140 selling for 270 or whatever, and Nvidia was going 250 selling for 500, then for people who make the entire review about MSRP, then AMD, they should be making the price half
you're just not doing a good job by doing that.
So if
the MSRP was 150, I'd be like, okay, it doesn't have hardware encoding, the performance isn't great, but really 150 is not a huge amount of money. And while we expect it to come in at a premium, it may come in at around $200, which it still would have been like pretty lukewarm. $200 is like where you can maybe start to justify this product, but it's not good. It has all these shortcomings. But again, then I would have gone to retailers. So what's this looking like, guys? Oh, it's going to be like 50% over that. The 150 is a pipe dream. It's going to be at least 270. Then I feel like
the conclusion's the same.
The conclusion's the same. Maybe even more negative. More emphasis on, look, at the 150 price, this is a good product, but it's not even going to be $200 where it's not a great product. It's going to be $270 where it's a crap product. So
it's almost like the more it gets inflated, the more embarrassing it is for for a bad quality product.
Exactly.
Where it's like, if it's $200, it's like, oh, oof. But at least at least the price is sort of relatively close. I mean, I think both of our opinion is that the MSRP should reflect the actual price. Mm-hmm. Like that's the ideal situation where if they know it's going to be $270, the MSRP should be.
So if the MSRP was $270 and it came in at $270, I don't think that would have changed the review much either. But But there may have been a bit more positivity in the fact that the MSRP was the actual price and it was available in good numbers at that. So I think rather than go the 150, which is more towards the misleading side of things, and going more to the honest side of things, I think you would actually end up getting a better reception there, especially for follow-up content.
Especially, yeah.
So I think that you going the opposite way to what you're suggesting would ultimately be the better option. All right, I'm actually interested to know, Tim.
Oh,
yeah. I'm interested to know, how many hours a week do you guys work? You know, so how many hours a week do you work? It's impressive how much content you put out for such a small channel, or such a small team, rather. Thank you very much. So
it's definitely different over the years, hasn't it? Because we've cut down the amount of videos.
We were actually looking at this last night because we were noticing that the channel traffic because we skipped 2020 because that was a crazy year. Everyone started watching YouTube basically because they had nothing else to do with their time. But from 2019 to 2021, we've only seen a smallish increase in how many views the channel generates, which on the surface seems a bit disappointing because the channel's grown quite substantially over that 2-year period. But we ended up doing 100 less videos in 2021 opposed to 2019. And Tim and I were scratching our heads saying, how are we doing like 6-7 videos a week between us? I don't even know the answer to that. Not a lot of sleep, but we don't really do less work now. If anything, we're working almost as hard, almost as much, but we're putting a lot more time into the content. Instead of testing 4 motherboards for a VRM comparison, I'm doing like 16. So we're doing, a lot less videos, but a lot more effort into the videos that we do produce. So as far as hours go, I mean, I work 7 days a week, basically, and I take a day off here and there, spend some family time. I think we've talked about this on the channel a bit before, but basically I feel like I see my kids more than what my parents would have seen me because, they worked full-time jobs. Whereas I'm home all the time. The kids come home from school, they come straight in, speak to me, see me. I'm here whenever they need me. So although I'm working all the time, I feel like I do more family time than someone who has to get up and go to work at like 7 a.m. or whatever it may be, and they end up getting home at 7 p.m. and have dinner and basically go to bed and repeat. And then on the weekends, they do whatever. But my dad in particular was completely knackered on the weekends because he did that all week. But he put in a lot of effort, but it's hard when you've got to do that full-time kind of grind and maybe drive an hour or so to work every day. So it's good. It's a good balance, I think. It's good that and it's a hobby. It's not a job you hate or don't look forward to. Like I'm always excited to get back to what we're doing. So the fact that I spend maybe 16 hours a day, almost 7 days a week on it, it's not as crazy as it sounds.
Yeah, and it's almost like there's times where even when you're not technically working at that time, you're always, because you're so involved with making the content and sort of the success of the channel and everything, it might be a time where I'm like watching a TV show or something, but I might have a laptop open doing some research, or I might be just thinking about the next video, or I might just pop up randomly with ideas in my head about stuff that I want to do. So, I typically would work maybe 5 to 6 days a week, but it's hard to quantify because I'm sort of like, I might be working here and then working there. I might only work 5 days in a week, but I've worked every single evening that week. Yeah. So in which case that's more than, a standard 9 to 5 job would be. So it's just, I feel like it sounds, maybe for some people, it sounds like we're working too much and it's bad, but it's kind of, when you're doing this as a job and you love it so much, it kind of just, it is part of your life.
It's really a hobby that
it really
do as
is
a job, so it's hard to explain that way. But
you're really invested in it, and and it's a very rewarding job as well. So it's not like we're putting in all these hours, and at the end we're getting terrible outcomes and like hating life and everything. It's
like to find work. Like sometimes it's like 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, and I'm in the Discord chatting to our Patreon and Floatplane members. So I mean, technically that's work, I suppose, but it doesn't really feel like it. Yeah. So. Steve, if you would select a bang for buck CPU with for high refresh rate gaming in early 2022, would it be Intel? And do you expect AMD to mix up the ratings this year? High refresh rate gaming. I think it'd still be, well, again, I guess it depends. If you've already got an AM4 motherboard, and you're looking for an upgrade, it wouldn't make much sense to jump to LGA 1700, especially if it's a decent AM4 motherboard. So for high refresh rate gaming on a budget like the Ryzen 5 5600X, that's good. I imagine for high refresh rate gaming, you're probably looking at Fortnite, Warzone, but basically a Zen 3 CPU would be a natural upgrade there. If you're looking at building a new computer and you're on a bit of a budget, but you do still want to target high refresh rate gaming, then Core i5 12400F is probably the way to go. And then stepping up to, well, really like the 12600K is probably the best CPU, because the 12700K really isn't going to offer you much extra performance for high refresh rate gaming. So but if you can afford it, then sure, go for it.
Yeah.
But they're all good options depending on your budget. But yeah, if you're starting out new, I would recommend LGA 1700 at this point in time.
Do you like more PCIe slots or more M.2 slots on motherboards? What do you think of the trend towards sacrificing PCIe slots for M.2 slots?
I don't think sacrificing PCIe slots for M.2 slots is a good idea. I'd rather have the PCI Express slots because they're significantly more flexible. I mean, most people are probably only going to put expansion cards in there to support more M.2 drives anyway, but you can support more M.2 drives that way because there's just more physical real estate when you start going, onto the cards. So not a huge fan of that trend, but I guess they do it because it looks cool having M.2 slots everywhere. People care about M.2 slots, and you get. It's hard. It's a hard one because a good, riser card, though the high-end boards used to include them, does cost more money. Whereas
and I think we've seen effective boards that have got lots of M.2 slots and also lots of PCIe slots, even in standard ATX form factors.
Yep.
So yeah, you can quite easily get 4 M.2s on those sorts of boards, and then still have all your normal PCIe slots. So. Yeah, it'd be good to have both. I think if you're talking about like an entry-level board, then you have to sort of think, well, people are probably more likely to use M.2 than PCIe expansion beyond just the normal x16 slot.
Yep.
So for a bare bones board, it probably would make more sense to prioritize M.2 over PCIe. But on a high-end board, you want both.
Yeah, I don't think it's a major drama either way. But on high-end boards, it's certainly more practical having the PCI Express slots because then you can get expansion cards, easier to cool. They're not getting heat dumped all over them by the graphics card if they happen to be situated under the graphics card. So, yeah, but I think on those higher-end models, you're probably able to do both pretty well. So I honestly don't consider this to be an issue with motherboards. All right, we'll hit pause. So that's part 1 done. We'll have another video probably on the channel tomorrow for part 2, which will basically look at the rest of the questions that we chose to answer. But another good month. We've had a busy few days. We had the live stream yesterday. We did the Patreon float plane live stream. So 2 live streams for us yesterday. It was like, I think it ends up being about 6 hours of live streaming.
Yeah, very busy. Very entertaining though. I enjoyed sitting behind the camera on the live stream for this time.
Watching everything go wrong for me.
Watching everything go wrong. But yeah, it was very entertaining. I thought it was a good stream. So
yeah, no, it's been a good month really. And yeah, looking forward to some interesting things happening next month. But anyway, that's going to do it for this one. So if you would like to make sure that your question gets addressed, then you can sign up to Floatplane. That's right.
That's right. Got it right.
Good job. Or Patreon. That'll get you access to our Discord server where you can chat with Tim and myself there, ask questions. You'll get behind the scenes content, Q&As, and live streams. That's pretty much the main things we typically do. So yeah, that's going to do it for this one. What do you reckon, Tim? Anything else to add to that?
Nope, that's all. Good job.
Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
No worries.
I'm your host, Steve.
I'm your host, Tim.
See you next time.